well, having completely blown the setup apart last week to make something work, let's let's see if it works this time, shall we? As ever, make sure that you click the buttons, share bits and pieces out. Always appreciated if you do. Warm-up question is in the chat. All the cups are now obviously behind us. Who are your playoff dark horses? We want to know. I'm just quickly doing the last little bits of setting things up here, just to see what is going on, which is what I wanted there. That's brilliant. We'll do that. We'll hit that button there. Get rid of a few bits and pieces, and we'll see if whether after mucking around with everything last week to make everything work, whether this is going to work now. We press the button. Hello, there we go. Ooh, I am a little high. There we go. Didn't really have a bit of a... What's going on there? There we go. Let's get that moderately straight. There we go. Made everything look incredibly all over the shop, didn't it? Blimey. Oh, forgot to do it last week, mostly because of trying to make sure all the tech didn't work. So apologies for those of you who watch on Catch Up. The magic word this week, if you're catching on Catch Up, remember, if you watch us on Catch Up, stick a comment down below. The magic word this week is Lego brick. You can do that as one word or two, however you feel, and then just put in your comment on any thoughts that you've got from anything that's come up during the show. But Lego brick is the magic phrase this time out. Jonathan, in South 1, Invicta could spring a surprise, as could Swindon, and then you sort of stopped halfway through a sentence there. Good start. Let's just check, actually. I'm having that moment of panicking about all the settings. So, I had the slight issue today of I got a security alert from Google telling me that my account was potentially compromised. So I had to sign out of everything and log back into everything, which was a bit of a pest because so much stuff is kind of linked through my Google account, which of course connects to YouTube, which of course connects to OBS, because essentially my setup means that I can kind of see the chat as everything is streaming at the same time. So it's all a bit of a mishmash. What I have noticed is that some of the settings changes I've made means that the CPU usage is not astronomically high, which is really, really good. Got quite a few people in already, actually. There we go. Beautiful. Everything has worked. Swindon have learned never to count out the Solent Devils or the Buccaneers in the playoffs, says Chris Beale, who I will see before too long, which would be awesome. Great to always catch up with Chris. Either way, having checked the time, I see it is time to get back to business and back to, well, as normal a format as we ever get on this show. Gals and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. and welcome back to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful and wacky world of the National Ice Hockey League structure. Here in Great Britain, we focus on the National Division, but that is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But of course, we take a moment to go through absolutely anything and everything from across the NIHL. That means the National Division as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Some other bits and pieces coming in there. Preston 47, I'll say Raiders in the National. Interesting choice there from Jonathan. Solent Defo, a dark horse. D-side in North 1 for me. Unless D-side learn how to defend better, Ben. And of course, if you don't check out Zero Pucks Given, do. Ben's got really, really comprehensive coverage of anything in South 1. So if you're out of the loop in South 1, make sure you check out Ben's stuff. He's got his stuff from the Cup final between Chelmsford and Solent up there. Exclusive coaches' thoughts and all that sort of stuff to check in. D-side we'll touch on in a minute, because if you haven't seen the scores from last weekend, because there were some games around the Cup games as well, then yeah, D-side had a weird weekend. A good weekend, but a weird weekend. For Sigala, National, I feel Romford could spring a surprise. South 1, we being Swindon, because Sigala helps out with the Wildcats too, can do pretty well. For me, the issue for the Wildcats too will be depth. So if the Cats finish 6th, which is a potential. So if you think for the Cats, they're more likely going to finish 6th or 7th, right? And that means they're either facing one of Chelmsford, Slough or Streatham over 2 legs. And I love you, can't see Swindon winning any of those ties. That said, the opportunity for some of those younger guys in Swindon to get a real taste of proper hardcore playoff hockey is only going to make them better. Also, I want to see Jan Kostel Senior and Jan Kostel Junior playing together in the playoffs. Either way, keep those answers coming in for the warm-up question as to who your dark horses for the playoffs are, as we need to kind of crack on with the show, because there's a lot to talk about tonight. But of course, if you're new to the show, you're about to get the introduction, and if you're an old viewer, hum along, you know the words. As we do our bit of housekeeping, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. You can follow my journey through that winds its way through British hockey through our Banners on the Road series, an in-depth look at every game that I go to. Yes, I did do another video one, and it was purely because I went to the first leg of the South 2 Cup final this past weekend between Guildford and Peterborough at the Guildford Spectrum. Hell of a game, all in all. Massively interesting, and we won't touch too much on the result, but it was a video one because it felt a bit silly to write an in-depth report about the first leg or something when the second leg was coming up the following night. So I asked the wife to sit and watch the boy, keep an eye on the boy as he was watching some telly, and I quickly dashed upstairs and put something together. But you get as in-depth a look as you will ever get onto any part of any of the cup finals this weekend. But of course, we've got everywhere I've gone, from across the Elite League to the National Division to Division 1 to Division 2. And given the upcoming games I'm going to, we're going to have some awesome banners on the roads coming up for you. This Saturday, I will be at Slough versus Streatham as the South 1 title looks like it could potentially, or not literally, but it will have that game will have a massive bearing on the deciding of the South 1 title. The following weekend, Sunday the 9th of March, Raiders fans, I am finally making my way to Romford. I will be at the Raiders game against the MK Lightning on the 9th, and that follows up the following weekend where on the 14th and the 15th of March, BOTW, and it's literally Banners on the Road. It's my little excursion weekend I like to take at some point before the end of the season. Friday the 14th of March at Cribbs Causeway for the Bristol Pitbulls and the Swindon Wildcats. And then Saturday the 15th of March, I will finally make my way to North 1, Deeside Dragons, Billingham Stars at the Deeside Ice Rink in Queensferry. Massively looking forward to it. And then, well, I'll leave what's coming for the back end of March and coming into April for a little bit. But March is looking pretty impressive. I've got some massive games. If you enjoy Banners on the Road, you're going to be in for a real treat. The other thing, of course, you can get on the website is our Hockey Story series, long-form, in-depth pieces of content. But some are written, some are audio-visual. I'm working on the newest Hockey Story right now. Bit of an off-the-wall one, but one that is really interesting and has had a massive impact on hockey in a bunch of different ways. And I've got another one on the back burner to do after that, which will be an historical piece. But we go from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war, and beyond. And you can get a bit of anything and everything if you like the movers and shakers of British and world hockey, if you like some historical bits and pieces, plenty of that for you. But as well as the back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast and our free-to-download tabletop hockey game, Dice Hockey. All of that is available on the website on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And the other thing, of course, is we are live. Our YouTube channel is here. We are live Wednesday nights, 8 p.m, all the way through the British hockey season. Hopefully you enjoyed the little experiment last week of trying to have a live guest. Even though the settings said that we should have both appeared on the same screen at the same time, that didn't work. But a massive thanks to Jack from Macca's Talk Hockey for joining me and being a guinea pig, essentially. Gonna look at some different ways of kind of doing that, because I think the method I chose worked, kind of, but not as well as it could have done. So I will look at kind of other ways to kind of have people onto the show live going forward. But otherwise, the YouTube channel has got game reports, interviews, tons and tons of stuff, as well as you can go right the way through the back catalogue of the BOTW What's Current stream. But of course, the joy, and I know some of you are watching on the catch-up, you've already had your magic word for this week. But if you are joining us live, of course, that means you get to join in with the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything and everything that comes up that you want to talk about as we go through the weird world of British hockey, then by all means stick something in the chat. But of course, please, if you're joining in, remember the golden rule here at BOTW. Such a golden rule, even Nikki managed to tweet it out from 4,000 counting the other day. DBAD, don't be a dick, be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we are all going to have a jolly good time. Either way, I can see what we've got. Some. The question is, will Smith'll do an interview on Zero Pucks given before the end of the season? Maybe if they win the league. And Ben, of course, like he said, he's finally managed to get Jets equipment manager Wayne Box, which is a start. I said it and I'll say it again. Slough, Lucas, talk to Ben, talk to me, talk to anybody at all at this point. It just looks really, really weird for us to be so standoffish I mean, not wanting to talk to me after I have made what I think are valid criticisms of Slough's, of the ways of some of the way that Slough do some bits. That's fine. You don't have to talk to me, but when you've got a podcast that literally talks to every other coach in the league, do something about it. It just looks really weird at this point. And yes, I'll keep saying it because it looks weird, and I can't think of a legitimate reason to do it, apart from the fact that you don't want to answer awkward questions. But such is life in such ways. There's plenty of awesome content. You're here now on a Wednesday night with me. So what we are going to do is we are going to turn the show upside down. Yes, we are going to turn the show upside down. We're going to park the National Division for a minute because, with all due respect to our home port, to our bread and butter, there was a bigger weekend at stake in the regional NIHL divisions this weekend. So I think it is only fair that for once at least we turn the show upside down. With 4 cup finals to talk about, we are heading into the NIHL regional leagues to start things off this week on the show. But there wasn't just cup finals. We are, of course, as we usually do, we're going to go through all of the divisions. I know we've got a few folk from from South One and other people who join in from other leagues as well. I noticed that Karen from Telford she's noticeable by her absence at this particular point. I wonder whether she'll come in as we're chatting about it. But either way, let's have a look first at North One. And yeah, look at that on the screen. Look at that scoreline. Deeside Dragons never change, and I am so looking forward to going to North Wales. I cannot tell you the sort of madness that I'm looking forward to when it finally comes up. But yeah, as you can see there, not only the ridiculousness of this, but also as well, this game was at 3-3, then at 6-3, then at 7-4. Then at 8-6 and 9-7. Basically, the literal definition of a game between Deeside and Widnes of why defend when you can not defend. And the thing is, here's the point of that as well, because somebody was asking me about this the other day. It's not about people saying, like, we're so bad we can't defend. They're just choosing not to because it's much more fun to score goals. But I feel like it's accidentally turned itself into a double entendre with a couple of teams this season. So that's the thing. But either way, Deeside win an absolute gong show of a game in regulation for the most part. As we can see, it literally goes backwards and forwards. But eventually, at the end, Deeside claim the win and claim the points out of it. So let's take a deep breath and we'll work our way through this one. Goals for the Dragons, a hat-trick for Jake Witkowski, 2 for Jason Burgess, and then goals for Ross Kennedy, Brody Jessen, Gary Simpson and James Parsons. For the Widnes Wild, who scored 8 goals and lost, and boy will they have been kicking themselves in the room after that one. 2 goals for Matt Barlow, 1 for Dan Hyde, 1 for Ben McClellan, 1 for Damani James, 1 for Andrew Hopkins, 1 for Luke Alston, and 1 for Flynn Massey on a 4-assist night for Bailey Thompson. This boy is far too good, far too young, and he makes me feel old. Elsewhere on Saturday night, the first leg of the Morley Cup final, and Billingham, after being absolutely smashed in Blackburn last year in the 2024 final, where the Hawks blew the Stars away, the Stars responded in kind this year by racing out of the gate. 3-0 up were the Stars inside 3 minutes and 25 seconds. Chris Sykes, Tommy Spraggan and Roland Gritans had the Stars ahead early, but it was 3-2 by the end of the first period because, again, Cup madness. James Riddock and Dara Spafford getting on the board and getting the Hawks within a goal. Then in the second period, the Stars strike again. 2 goals in the space of a couple of seconds. Ian Brown, the second of the night for Gritans, making it 5-2. In the third period, the Hawks though get themselves back within touching distance. Adam Barnes with a goal just over 10 minutes from time, making it 5-3. After the first leg in Lancashire. Into Sunday then, and Whitley. Well, they've had quite an up and down year, and it's been quite tumultuous. Couple of weeks of arguments between fans and the GM, and various criticisms. Talk of the GM receiving death threats and his tyres being slashed. So, firstly, everybody in Whitley needs to calm the hell down. But on the ice, it's been a bit of an interesting season for them, where it feels like they've struggled with consistency. But the Warriors get a big win at home against the Hull Jets. Dean Holland and Ethan Dainty cancelling each other out in the first period, but then goals in the second period from Harry Harley and a second of the night from Holland late in the third gives the Warriors a full 3-point night on Sunday. The Wild, well, having had a gong show of a game on Saturday night and they lose in a much more conventional fashion on the Sunday on the small pad at the NIC. A 6-2 win for the Nottingham Lions, confirming the Lions' place in the post-season for 2024-25. And also, for the first time in quite some time, the Lions may not finish in the final playoff spot, but a pretty impressive game from them. A natural hat-trick. I can't read. Sorry, I've read Alex Padalek 3 times, and there's definitely Alex Rushby in the middle there. Padalek with 2, Rushby with 1 in the middle, followed by Scott Venus made it 4-0. Flynn Massey getting the Wild on the board in the second period before Tyler Somerton and Luke Birchnell had made it 6-1. A late goal from Dan Hyde taking some gloss off the victory, but a solid win and 3 points for the Nottingham Lions nonetheless. In a pretty low shot game, Isaac Ballinger only making 20 saves on 22 shots in the end. And then, well, here's one for you, of course, because some people may have heard about it and may not have heard about it. But the Billingham Stars came into this weekend having not trained at all. Ice at the Billingham Forum, there was an issue with bits and pieces, and the ice wasn't freezing for a time. It meant the Stars were unable to train, so they came into this weekend having not trained at all, which is pretty crazy, all things considered. But either way, the Stars headed home, and the Billingham Stars have lost their perfect home record. They had not lost a game at home all season, and they lose this one to the Blackburn Hawks, but it isn't by enough. The Hawks win by 5-4, but the Billingham Stars win the cup in North 1 by an aggregate score of 9-8. Congratulations to Stephen Foster, Michael Elder, and the team there. And as you can see, absolute back and forth. The two best teams in North 1 went head to head, and in the end of the day, the Stars had just enough over the 120 minutes worth of hockey. James Moss and Jacob Lutwich cancelled each other out in the first period, but the Stars led at the end of 20 minutes thanks to a goal from Ian Brown. Andy McKinney tied things up early in the second period, just 46 seconds into the frame, but a power play goal from Callum Wilkinson made it 3-2, and the Stars had their noses back in front, but the Hawks turned it around and were leading after 40 minutes. Aaron Davies and James Royds on the scoreboard to make it 4-3. Chris Sykes with what is the all-important cup-winning goal on the power play at 48-11 of the second leg got the Stars level at 4-4. Whilst Adam Barnes would score again a few minutes later, the Hawks could not find a way, as well as the Stars having an empty net goal washed out for offside late on in the piece. But either way, after the third attempt, after losing in 2023, having been just seconds away when Solway scored an equaliser and then losing on penalty shots, and then last year where the Hawks blew them out of the water, the Stars claim the trophy that has eluded them for so long, and they take the Morley Cup for 2025. And then there is D-side, who conceded 15 goals in 2 games and came out with 5 points. That is a hell of a weekend from Mike Clancy's boys, and utterly crazy as the Dragons go with 13 skaters to Solihull and come out with an overtime win. All of the big names, for the most part, getting on the score sheet. Jake Witkowski, who scored hat-tricks in back-to-back nights, including the OT winner. And if we scroll down, as you can see, a short bench for the Dragons. Goals for the Barons, for 2 from Nicholas Otterson, 2 from Charlie Webb, 1 from Jacob Race, and 1 from Brandon Anderson, who will be left scratching their head. But it was the first defeat in 12 games for the Barons, who've been on a really, really impressive recent run. For the Dragons, 3 goals for Jake Witkowski, including the game winner in OT, and goals for Daniels Fadiyevs, Ross Kennedy, Gary Simpson, and Cade King on a big night, a big turnaround weekend as well for the Deeside Dragons, given their recent slightly wonky form. A 50 save performance from Phil Pearson between the pipes for the Dragons. Next weekend then, this upcoming weekend, Saturday the 1st, and the Nottingham Lions head back to the big ice at the National Ice Centre. They take on the Whitley Warriors with a 1 p.m. face-off this weekend. 6 p.m. in Lancashire, the Blackburn Hawks will have to lick their wounds and try to fly again, as they have a big game against the Solihull Barons. And the newly minted Cup champions, who of course Billingham are only 9 points away, 3 wins will secure the Stars a back-to-back North 1 title. They head to the Castle at Ellen Road to take on the Leeds Knights at 7:30. Sunday the 2nd of March, then a couple of games facing off at 5 p.m. over in North Wales, the Deeside Dragons and the Hull Jets. And then the big local derby up in the North East at Hillheads, the Whitley Warriors and the Billingham Stars meet at 5 p.m. 5:30 on Merseyside for the Widnes Wild and Leeds Knights. And then 7:30 p.m. a double home weekend for the Lions. They are back on the small pad on Sunday. Of course, you can join Dylan Pickford commentary on the Nottingham Lions YouTube channel for that one. They can't do commentary on the big pad, but they can on the small one. So Sunday at 7:30, the Lions and the Blackburn Hawks. And then into South 1, much fewer games in that particular division. It said, say his name and he appears. Dylan Pick has turned into Joe Hendry looking at the chat. But either way, in South 1. It was Saturday night, the first leg of the Cup final, down on the south coast in Gosport. Solent and Chelmsford, and whilst the Devils took the lead in the second period through Alex Murray, it was a third period breakout from Lewis Clifford's side. Grant Bartlett, Halden Barnes-Garner, TJ Fillery and Cam Bartlett getting on the score sheet in the third period, and meant that Chelmsford headed back to Essex on Sunday with a 4-1 aggregate lead. Elsewhere on Saturday, Streatham and Cardiff played the game that got called off because of the bad weather earlier in the year, and Streatham showed absolutely no mercy whatsoever, putting a 12 spot on the Cardiff Fire in the battle of the capital sides. A pretty crazy night. All in all there, and as you can see by the fact his name has popped up quite a few times, a big night as well for Danny Ingoldsby. A 7-point evening for him, 4 goals and 3 assists for the former Bracknell Bee and Basingstoke Bison. Elsewhere, 2 goals for Ziggy Beasley and goals for Roman Cathcart, Ryan Watt, Josh Ely Newman, Damon Porter, Luke Brittle and Aidan Doughty. A tough night for both Cardiff netminders. Ben Scanlon facing 58 shots through just over half the game, and Brocken Evans coming in and conceding 3 on 33. An 11-shot shutout for Danny Milton. And the one thing you don't want if you're a side and heading towards the playoffs is Danny Milton getting back to the form he showed last year before injury started to take its toll. And then, well, they started off pretty well and got themselves within a goal, but ultimately the Chelmsford Chieftains just a little bit too strong for the Solent Devils. It was pretty finely poised at one point, but it just wasn't enough. Liam Coleman and Kane Russell had the Devils 2-0 up at the end of the first, but then Chelmsford started getting their legs underneath them. Dan Hitchinson, Halden Barnes-Garner pulled it back to 2-2 on the night before Ollie Baldock made it 3-2 to put the Chieftains comfortably in command. Cam Buckle and Liam Coleman then turned it back to get them within shouting distance again to lead 4-3 on the night in trail by 2, but late goals from Mikey Power and another on the night for Halden Barnes-Garner means that the Chelmsford Chieftains win the South 1 Cup by an aggregate score of 9-5. So congratulations to Lewis Clifford, to Alan Lack and the team down at the Riverside as they claim the Cup trophy. And for the Devils, it's the bridesmaid spot again, as they just managed to not get themselves over the line. Pretty impressive defensive performance as well from the Devils. Aaron Taylor with 36 saves on 41 shots. And then there was this one right in towards the bottom of South 1, a huge game in the race for 8th place, but one that if results go their way could be massive for the Oxford City Stars. The Stars, with a 3-2 shootout win over the Cardiff Fire, hold the tiebreaker over the Welsh side. So whilst the Fire have a game in hand, they arguably, one, have a tougher run in, and two, could be then staring down the point of finishing level on points with the Stars, but missing out because of results like this. Aaron Reagan putting the Fire 1 goal to the good inside the first period, but that was cancelled out by Jake Williams. A scoreless second gave way to Cardiff taking the lead through Bailey Hind-Pitcher, but Sam Robinson's third of the season tied things up. And in the shootout, Joe Covey, the hero of the piece, this is before Morgan Parsons got given a game misconduct penalty for an obscene gesture. Definitely one thing that the Stars will not be wanting is missing out on their backup netminder for a portion of the game. We await Dops' review on that one. This upcoming weekend then in South 1, knowing that things are getting tight, we aren't going to bother with the league tables just because the Cup's been the really big focus unless something huge comes up. But Saturday the 1st, like 5:45pm down in Essex, the newly minted Cup champions, the Chelmsford Chieftains, they take on the Cardiff Fire, and just up the road, the Invicta Dynamos in a local derby with the Romford Buccaneers. And then, arguably, one of the main event games across the entirety of the NIHL this weekend, 6:30pm at the Hangar, the Slough Jets and the Streatham Redhawks will go head to head. I will be there in attendance. I'll be there alongside my good friend of many years, Chris Beale, to see what madness befalls us in this one, because you know it is going to be energetic, it is going to be intense, it is going to be physical, and I cannot wait. This is the sort of games that you love about the sport. Sunday the 2nd then, 5:15pm over at the Sapphire for the Romford Buccaneers and the Solent Devils. It's the other local derby, 6pm at the Riverside, as Chelmsford have their second home game of the weekend against the Invicta Dynamos. 6:15 at the Oxpens, can the City Stars dent the run of the Slough Jets? And then Streatham head across to the Link Centre on Sunday. They face off at 6:30pm against the Swindon Wildcats. Over in North 2, in this other sort of sidebar Challenge Cup they seem to be having, which I don't remember being announced, but they're doing it anyway. Another crazy game where why defend when you can not defend, apparently, as the Sheffield Titans win out some Yorkshire bragging rights with an 8-6 win over the Bradford Bulldogs in a game that appears to have been incredibly back and forth. Finished off at with Bradford pulling back to tie the game at 6-all before late goals from Lewis Swaffield and Harry Illingworth did the damage there. But either way, a good cup win for the Titans, who, from my understanding as well, in this Challenge Cup, have actually had one of their results overturned due to a forfeiting for a coaching error. So the similar sort of errors to what happened with the Seahawks in the National Division. We'll get some confirmation on that if we can. Either way, for the Titans, 2 hat-tricks, in fact, one for Harry Roebuck and one for Lewis Swaffield, as well as we mentioned goals from Harry Illingworth and a goal for Millie Thulborn. Into the bargain for Bradford, 2 goals for Danny Harrison, 2 for Kai Hathaway, and goals for Ollie Massey and David Williams. The first leg of the North 2 Cup final then saw the 2 juggernauts of North 2, the immovable object, the unstoppable force. But the Tigers squeak their way through with a 5-4 win in the first leg. Sutton, though, will be kicking themselves in this one. They raced out to a 3-0 lead. Morgan Glasby with 2 and Jacob Truswell having them up inside 3-0 up inside 27 minutes. Taylor Stanton got the Tigers on the board before Lawson Glasby had Sutton 4-1 up at the end of the second period, and in the third period, Telford decided they'd had enough of that nonsense. Vladimir Luka, Callum Griffin, Taylor Stanton, and then a late game-winning goal from Vladimir Luka, his 7th in the knockout stages of the North 2 Cup, giving Telford the edge as they headed into Sunday. And then, as you can see there, it was streamed live on YouTube. Whoever put the stream together, respect for what they tried to do. It was a little bit choppy in places, but we did get to see that the first blood of the season goes to the Telford Tigers 2. Sutton took the lead just before the end of the first period through Cam Akers. But it was tied up. A cracking goal from Liam Bartholomew, teed up for the blast by Vladimir Luka, made it 1-1. Sutton put their noses just in front at the beginning of the third period. Cam Glasby tying the scores back up on aggregate, but then Telford just pulled themselves away. Paul Davies and Taylor Stanton put them just out of reach, and an empty net goal with a minute to play from Vladimir Luka sealed the deal. So congratulations to all in Telford, and of course regular stream viewer Karen, who does a bunch of updates and bits and pieces. So yes, tiger emojis and trophies in the chat. Congratulations to all at Tigers 2 on their success. They get first blood in the battle for the trophies in North 2 this season. Shout out as well to Ollie Hunt. I know he occasionally pops into the chat as well. Either way, an upcoming weekend. Not tons of games happening in North 2 this weekend, but 2 on Saturday. One over in North Wales at 5 o'clock as the Deeside Ducks, fresh off of their, well, they didn't play this weekend, but fresh off their 1-0 win over the Coventry Blaze, which is a bit of a strange one, considering how many goals the Ducks have conceded. They won a game 1-0, which is mad. But they take a Deeside Billingham 5 p.m. this coming Saturday in North Wales. 6:30 p.m. in the Sky Dome for the Coventry NHL Blaze and Telford Tigers 2. The game last season that Telford lost, and given the fact that them and Sutton are literally on a collision course for the league title, could the Blaze spring a surprise here? 3 games on Sunday in North 2, 5:30 p.m. at the Forum for the Billingham Buccaneers and the Sutton Sting, 5:30 as well over in Shropshire. That feels a little early for a Telford game, but either way, the Tigers 2, the new Cup champs, take on the Kingston Sharks, and 5:45 p.m. in Manchester for the Altrincham Aces and the Sheffield Titans. In South 2, for those of you not paying attention, of course they've got their extra cup competition, the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup, and where the league form has been all over the place for Lee Valley. When it comes to a cup competition named after the perennial Lee Valley legend, the Lions are not taking any prisoners. A 5-goal night from Tadger Allen as the Lions smash the Warriors in Chelmsford. A huge result for the Lions in a competition that, you know, given them that the man that it's named after, are going to be taking absolutely no prisoners whatsoever. As we mentioned, 5 for Tadger Allen on the night, 2 for Nathan Awayemi, and 2 for Carlton Waiter. For the Chelmsford Warriors, their goals coming from George Beckett, George Taylor, and Sam Austin. Pretty harsh night for Scott Davis between the pipes for the Warriors. The only netminder, he concedes 9 goals on 29 shots. On Saturday then, that was where I was. The absolutely ding-dong back-and-forth game that blew apart in the third period between the Guildford Phoenix and the Peterborough Phantoms. And of course, these two sides had only lost 1 game each in the league at each other's place. Connor Pollard's late power play goal in the first got things going before, and it took Guildford a while to really get going. Peterborough were defending this one really well, and of course you can check out the full in-depth report over at bannelsonthewall.wordpress.com. But Ollie Dennis eventually scoring on the power play, and then disaster strikes. Connor Pollard scores with a dumping on net 7 seconds into the third. They then get a power play goal. He gets a power play goal to make it 3-1 after the puck bounces off the backboard, and Jack Garner in the Guildford Phoenix net loses sight of it, and it drops in front of him, and Connor Pollard is standing at the top of the crease before 2 short-handed goals late in the day from Nathan Pollard gave the Phantoms a pretty commanding 5-1 lead heading into the second leg. On Sunday then, another win, a third win of the season finally for the Bristol Pitbulls 2. They get a 6-2 win over the Oxford Rising Stars. A game really where Bristol still obviously pushing for that final playoff spot. Oxford are in a pretty good place. For them, they obviously won't like the fact they've lost a bit of form heading towards the postseason, but a big win for Bristol, and one that will certainly have gone down well in the dressing room. 6 different goal scorers as well for the Pitbulls: Dean Baker, Jamie Lewis, Ollie Shon, Sully Taylor, Lee Duance, and Sam Bryant for the home side. Goals from James Eldridge and Ashley Cave for the Rising Stars. In this one, a pretty decent performance from Alex Cole between the pipes of the Bristol Pitbulls. 2 goals on 38 shots, 36 saves night and a win. Can't beat that one. And then, well, it happened again. Peterborough and Guildford win in each other's buildings, but it's not by enough. The Peterborough Phantoms take the South 2 Cup by an aggregate score of 9-6 after Guildford probably gave them a little bit of a scare. As you can see, they got it to 5-4 at 45:07, but Peterborough managed to lock the game down and played it out. Congratulations to Nathan Pollard and the team over over in Peterborough as they get themselves the first bit of silverware of the season, knowing that Guildford still have games to play in the league, and any slip up there could prove costly. Although it should be said, Guildford's running, we've talked about it before, looks pretty favourable to them, but the first piece of silverware doesn't head to the Spectrum; it heads to Bretton instead. Goals in this one: two from Jordan Ho on the night, one from Nick Martin, who thankfully survived getting kneed pretty badly in the first game, and one from Nathan Pollard. For the Phoenix, Sol Studley, Jared Vigar, Harry Wright, Scott Bailey, and Jed Sherrington with the goals in this one. So as we mentioned, Peterborough have finished their league campaign and they go back to waiting and watching, and they will have all eyes this Saturday on Gosport, 5 p.m. down on the south coast for the Solent Junior Devils and the Guildford Phoenix. How will the Phoenix respond? I wouldn't want to be Solent if I was them. 5:30 p.m. at Alexandra Palace, the Haringey Huskies take on the Chelmsford Warriors, with the Huskies lurking over the shoulder, waiting for somebody to slip up. One game then in South 2. On Sunday. That is down in Cardiff Bay, and it looks like it'll be another packed house at the Vindigo. The Cardiff Canucks back to action against the Chelmsford Warriors. 6 p.m. on the Tigers 2 game. Then why does it say 5:30? If we can't trust Joe, also as well, all of the bits and pieces that you've seen, if you're new to stuff, all the box scores and bits and pieces are from NHLstats.wordpress.com. The fantastic Joe Scutts, who the EIH statistician for such things. He makes those. They're on the website. You can read them, check them, and enjoy them. Make sure that you do bits and pieces for Joe. Also, Joe is returning this summer with the NIHL yearbook. And what he's looking for is people to write a report on their team. Do you feel confident enough? Do you feel brave enough to write a season review of your team? No matter the level in the NIHL, Joe would like to hear from you. Make sure you check out NHL Stats on all of the social media platforms so you can join in and help Joe. I will probably be lurking around seeing which ones he needs help with, because of course my team are hiding off in the mist, just out of sight, waiting to come back. But yeah, definitely do go check out Joe's bits, and a thanks of course to him for across the years and bits and pieces. These box score things you see have been fantastic. They've been such a great thing for us to be able to kind of check through and look at as we do this part of the stream, as we are doing it backwards this year because so much happened across the divisions. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. What are we feeling at the moment? As Jamie has stuck the scores in the chat, which is very, very kind of him. Cardiff and Sheffield in the Elite League tied at 1 in the second period. 0-0 in the semi-final second leg of the Challenge Cup in the Elite League between Nottingham and Belfast, which is pretty crazy. And of course, talking about Belfast, you might have seen on our on the BOTW social medias over the last day or so. Massive shout out, and I'll do it here on my show to Patrick, to Davey, to Simon Kitchen, to Marty, to everyone who's walked the bits and pieces. For A View from the Bridge, the Belfast Giants podcast, celebrating their 500th episode yesterday evening. In October, it'll be 20 years of AVFTB. The original, the standard bearers, the bar setters, and the OGs. I've known Patrick a really, really long time. I've known Patrick longer than I've known my wife, so I do know what he's like. But if you haven't had the opportunity, even if you don't watch a massive amount of Elite League hockey, check them out. Check out their 500th episode. If only for a very, very particular special guest that they managed to get for the 500th show. Massively, pleased that they were able to kind of put some bits and pieces together. And also, I've known the guys for a really long time. Like I say, Patrick in particular, I've known for longer than I've known my wife. So just massively proud of what they've been able to achieve. And very much kind of they were the first wave. It was The View from the Bridge and the Manchester Phoenix podcast from Ben Knight, which were the first kind of bits and pieces that I was really aware of. And of course, he had Rob doing the Pyre as a blog, but that kind of floated in and out a little bit. So BOTW is kind of the second wave of kind of longevity of bits and pieces, because in terms of stuff that's really kind of stuck around and regularly published stuff, I think it probably is AVFTB and me. And I'm 6 years behind them. So that's I'm probably not going to catch them up. But congratulations to Patrick. Congratulations to to Davey and to Simon Kitchen and the whole crew over at AVFTB. They said there's not going to be another 500 shows, so I will merely wish them well as they continue to navigate those waters across the Irish Sea. And like I say, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, the call, we will see whether the call comes, and I will tell that story another time. But yeah, questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, any particular big bits out of the cup finals that we're feeling about at the moment? For me, I did say that if because I thought that Billingham would probably edge it, and they did by the nearest the margins. Of course, ultimately being the closest final out of the four. The Billingham Stars podcast, obviously with Craig, Carol, and Jono, that came out this morning. They always say it comes out at 8 a.m. Craig, it never comes out at 8 a.m. It always seems to appear on YouTube before that. But certainly, I mean, they kind of touched on the fact that it was just a massively great advert for North One Hockey. Stephen Foster, the Billingham coach, talked about it. Dominic Osmond, who, if you've not watched Dominic Osmond's interview after the cup final, shake that man by the hand if you ever meet him, because what a properly, genuinely magnanimous sporting response to having just lost the cup final by a really, really close margin. And also as well, Blackburn become the first team to win in Billingham this year. Crazy as well when you think about that. But yeah, some really good stuff that's come out of the Stars from their social media team. Do go check that out. What a weekend the guys from AVFTB had to celebrate their 500th episode. Indeed, a huge weekend with a double winning weekend over the Cardiff Devils for Belfast. But yeah, the North One final, like I said, I thought Billingham would edge it, and they did. In the South, I said that if Solent were within a puncher's chance on the end of Saturday, they could take it on the Sunday. And I mean, they gave Chelmsford a bit of a scare, but probably 3 goals was probably 1 goal too far. At the end, Chelmsford as well for where they seem to trip themselves up in the league. They just seem in this sort of shorter format, and maybe this is the continuous joke about Milton Keynes folk and Lewis Clifford, but they've done it again in a short format. They've managed to sneak their way through and do the business. North 2. That was pretty much going to be a coin toss either way. I think everybody was pretty convinced that would be. And if you got the opportunity to watch any of the second leg, so obviously couldn't watch the first leg because of being in Guildford, but having watched what I could watch of the second leg when the stream kind of died down from being so choppy, like it's like North, those two sides clearly look like they could have a crack at playing at the level above, and obviously don't for obvious reasons, but but certainly a hard fought, a really well done, hard fought game, and also just actually showing that people can talk about Vladimir Luka scoring 5, 6, 7 goals a game. Well, he wasn't able to do that in this, and actually Sutton and Telford run each other pretty close. That league title race in North 2 is going to go down to the wire, and I think we all know that. In South 2. Guildford just shot themselves in the foot, really, on the Saturday. They had to push forward. They had to open up because 3-1 down, they needed goals, and Peterborough just did enough in the first leg, really. It was a really good defensive performance. It was a bit Slav hockey light. I ain't going to lie, not the most interesting style of playing, given the fact that I've seen Peterborough play differently in the past. I was hoping for more of that and less of what I got in that sense. But certainly one of the things they were able to do that I think actually that South 2 and that slower pace allows them to do was in the second period, having kind of played a lot on the back foot in the first, Peterborough just turned a switch and started coming forward with a lot more intensity in that second period. Really interesting to see. Great as well to see big minutes for Matthew Seville and Luke Clark getting the role between the pipes for both legs in this one. And actually Clark, those minutes in the National Division made him look that much more comfortable. He was the better netminder. Guildford's played each of their netminders. They had Jack Garner on the Saturday night and Jake Studley on the Sunday. And Clark outperformed the pair of them, and that's a big reason why they won this weekend. Also, as well, laying up 2 short-handed goals in the last couple of minutes when you had a 5-on-3, bad. That's never going to win your bits and pieces. But the Guildford Phoenix will be staring redemption in the face. They've got some big games coming up, and like I say, the Phoenix run the table. If they win out, the Phoenix will win the league. Phantoms will have the cup, and then you know what could be happening come Sheffield and the Steel City Showdown. When it comes to the Steel City Showdown, I said to people to bring £1 to this stream. I need you to take that pound, if you've got it. Take that pound coin, put it to the side, save it. We have 2 tickets to give away, but admittedly, somebody today has already put up their raffle for doing that, and that's one of those things. It just happens. So just going to pause R1 for a little bit. We've got time before that happens, but R1 is going to be coming in a couple of weeks, just to give some space. But it will be to raise money for Parkinson's UK. That's all. I will say that much, because I talk about it every week when I do my spiel about dice hockey and if you download it and stuff like that. But yeah, I spoke to my dad today because for those people who don't know, Parkinson's UK is a big charity for me to support, because my dad has Parkinson's. My dad is going to be 66 this year. He's had Parkinson's for 11 years. He was diagnosed in his mid-50s. And I spoke to him today because on Wednesdays he has his sort of support / therapy group, where a bunch of them with Parkinson's at different stages all kind of get together and kind of do some like rehab exercises and just chat about stuff. And obviously that's quite a big thing for my dad to be social as he is now, because not only does my dad have Parkinson's, he also has Parkinson's dementia. And Parkinson's dementia is not, I mean, people hear dementia and they kind of think, oh, you forget who you are and you forget who everybody is and stuff. But Parkinson's dementia is quite weird in the sense that you struggle to operate in the current time. So my dad remembers who everybody is. He remembers me. We can have quite a lucid conversation a lot of the time. He remembers me. He remembers my wife. He remembers my son Nathan. He remembers my sister and her husband and their little boy, because my nephew is 16 months old now. And my dad will remember people, and if you tell him something enough, he will remember it. But Parkinson's dementia essentially nukes your sense of time in the moment, and he will forget anything, and he will forget the sentence he was saying as he is saying it, kind of thing. And it makes it hard to do things like look after yourself properly, because you'll forget why you were doing stuff, and have your tablets and a bunch of other things. And yeah, it's crazy to think that my dad, who ran like 10Ks and half marathons and used to not have any trouble moving around, like he can't like move properly yet, and he can't hold things properly because he's got rigidity in his fingers, and he can't like bend the fingers on his hands. He doesn't bend them at the joints anymore. They bend like that. Like, it's quite strange, and you feel that horrible sense about your own mortality and their mortality. So when eventually I put this raffle live, because I want to give Nicky some respect and kind of let him his one have some space too. But 100% of the money from mine is going to Parkinson's UK, because I really want to raise some money towards some people who are helping to do something about this disease that I stare at in the face. And my granddad had Parkinsonian issues, and my dad has full-blown Parkinson's. And it's not generally hereditary, but it can be in 5 to 15% of cases. So I live with that bit hanging in the back of my head, and hopefully it doesn't happen to me. But either way, I've seen what it can do, and I've seen what the support of dealing with people, being around for those kind of things, that, Parkinson's isn't curable, but it doesn't mean that life stops. And I think that actually being able to do some bits and pieces and give some money to the folk who can kind of do something with that. So when that happens and when that comes, like I say, I'm just going to pause it, because I think people putting 2 raffles out at the same time is a bit of a pain. So I'm going to give people a bit of space. But that pound coin I asked you to bring tonight, put it to the side, keep it safe for now. We'll come back to it. National Division. Going to be interesting with Solway and Sheffield come playoffs with rink availability, especially the final weekend. Fridays are a thing, is the thing I will say there. Because if people remember, during the Olympic qualifiers, Sheffield played on the Friday night, which was an off day for the women's Olympic qualifiers. There is blank days. There is a empty day on a Friday. So if Solway make the playoffs, they can play on the Friday as well. I think people are overthinking that one. Either way, let us have a look at the NIHL National Division from this past week. So we're going to go back through all the results, including this one. This game was going on whilst we were streaming last week, and thank you for all of those who put up with us when the stream crashed randomly out of nowhere an hour and 25 minutes in. But yeah, Peterborough did Solway a favour, just a bit. it's like, again, it's a proper cricket score, isn't it? It's the first couple of overs of a 2020 game. As the Phantoms, it's almost like a clock. You put a 0 after the 3 and we're at 12:30, but a pretty bonkers game all in all. And good for the Phantoms, who obviously will want to get some momentum going heading into the postseason. Zane McKenzie back in the lineup on this sort of two-way that's not a two-way with the Coventry Blaze, but if you're not going to get ice time, may as well get ice time somewhere else, and especially with if injuries are going to affect Peterborough, as injuries always seem to affect Peterborough. But Cam Huff back on the score sheet in a big way. Yanni Larkinen, Luke Ferrara. Can we just be quick? No, we're going to make this painful. But yeah, Telford get utterly shellacked by Peterborough, and we will move on to Friday, because the Sheffield Steel Dogs, 1, are probably sick of playing the Leeds Knights, and 2, they lost again. This time, having lost a week ago on Tuesday, then been shut out 6-0, they then lose in the Castle to the Leeds Knights. Kieran Brown with a hat trick, and Jordan Boycer with the other goal for the Knights. It was pretty close at the start, obviously 2 goals inside the first 5 minutes. Ivan Björkley Nordstrom got a goal as well, but Jonathan Kirk with the other goal for the Steel Dogs in that one on Friday night. Into Saturday then, and well, Swindon, having had a bit of a tough, taken a bit of a kicking from MK the previous week, come back in style and give Romford an absolute shellacking. Edgars Bedbris, Aaron Nell on the score sheet, as was Jake Bricknell, Reid Sayers and Tomasz Malazinski, 7-0, and a big shutout for Rennie Marr, who was announced this week as signing a 2-year extension with the Cats, which will take him through to a testimonial season in 2026-27. So congratulations to Rennie on that. Fantastic servant of the Wildcats for a long time. It does feel like Swindon are having a testimonial every other year at the moment, which is pretty bonkers. But either way, the Cats, knowing that if either of the 2 teams ahead of them slip up, they could slide in, and the league title is not mathematically out of Swindon's reach. It was start of a home and home series between the Bees and Seahawks, as playoff eligibility is slowly slipping away from the Bees. They lose by 4-1 at home to the Hull Seahawks. The Bees, though, were 1 goal up at the end of the first period thanks to Will Stead, but then a pretty impressive performance from the Seahawks in the last 40 minutes, including 3 power play goals in just over 11 minutes of game time. Jason Hewitt with the only 5-on-5 goal for the Hawks, with all goals from Emil Speck, Owen Sobchak and another from Jason Hewitt, making it 4-1 at the end of the day. That goal from Sobchak securing his place as the first player in the National Division this year to pass the 100-point barrier. Tis but a scratch. Oh, well done, Dave. Yes, you can have that one. I like that one a lot. And then a big game in that race for 8th place, and a big win for the Solway Sharks, whose recent form has been absolutely atrocious, but they finally find a way to get over the line, and not just get over the line, but in a big way against the team they needed to beat. The scoring started off by, of all people, Liam Danskin getting on the board for the first time in a while, as well as goals from Callum Boyd, Torrin Anderson, Callie Robertson, Kel Beattie, John Dunbar, and a second of the night from Callum Boyd inside the last minute for the Sharks. Goals for the Tigers coming from Eric Henderson, 2 from David Thompson, and 1 from Scott McKenzie in a game that will have frustrated Tommy Watkins again. Then there's this nonsense. You had 11 goals in the last game and 11 goals in this game. You get value for money, as MK don't just batter Bristol, they absolutely tennis serve them out of the thing. Actually, no, can't be a tennis serve. That would have been 15. But either way, poor Harry Tommy Napier playing a chunk of this game before coming out hurt, and Harry Thomas going in for the duration of this one as well. But just an absolute demolition job by the Lightning, who, with Leeds having won the night before, the Lightning still, of course, topping the table, needing to get some big results, and knowing goal difference potentially could massively help them. And this would have been the weekend for it, knowing this was the first of a home and home with the Pitbulls. But the other thing as well, Leeds, they keep pace after where MK did not win in a conventional way. Leeds win 4-2, and then the following night go to Peterborough and win 4-1. Peterborough with 13 goals in 2 games and only win 1 of them. Such is life. Cam Huff with the lone goal for the Phantoms coming in the third period for them, because the Knights were already 3-0 up at that point. 2 goals, actually a hat-trick from Matt Barron, a natural hat-trick from Matt Barron, a short-handed goal from Matt Haywood late, putting a bit of extra shine on a 4-1 result on Saturday for the Knights. Into Sunday then, and the Sharks, well, they blew it. They needed another win, and they're going to have to try and win as many games as possible now, but they lose in Sheffield to the Steel Dogs by a score of 4-2, despite being a goal up inside 70 seconds from Scott Henderson. Kel Beattie with the other goal for the Sharks to get them within touching distance. That one made it 3-2 after goals from Walker Summer, Ivan Björklund and Brady Doxey, but a late empty netter from Walker Summer put the Sharks to bed and kept 2 points at Ice Sheffield. And then Peterborough again, defending. Anybody want to defend anywhere? I can only imagine what our Romford and Peterborough fans, sporting friends, are going to put in the chat after this one. 9-6. 80s retro night in Romford, apparently, going back to the days of Dagenham Motors. But a pretty crazy one, all in all. By the looks of it, though, one thing that's been lacking for Romford, Sean Miller, appearing to be hurt. We've seen a little bit more of this particular game as well. Nils Maskelyne's into the lineup, which is really good to see. Harvey Briggs back in the lineup as well. Adam Leishram playing, but pretty crazy one. So TJ Anderson with 2, Andrew Schufelt with 2, Jake Sylvester with 2. Adam Leishram and Harvey Briggs with the other goals for the Raiders. For the Phantoms, Austin Mitchell-King, Cam Huff with 2, Duncan Spears, Yanni Larkinen, and the first senior goal in British hockey for Richard Hartman. And obviously, signed for MK, got sat on the sidelines a lot, moved to Peterborough, which, let's face it, was a much more kind of move that made sense in that sense. He's a very Slava Kulikov style player, and finally gets himself on the score sheet. Congrats to you, young man. Hope it all works out for you. On Sunday then, the other part of that home and a much more comfortable win for the Hull Seahawks. Of course, crying foul over a goal that was called off for a high stick that from the video wasn't high stick. You won 6-2. Stop your belly aching. A hat-trick in this one from Emil Svek, as well as goals from Owen Sobchuk, Johnny Corneal and Jason Hewitt. The goals for the Bees in this one coming from Marcel Balaj and Stuart Mogg. Shout out to the Hull fan who said that Max Wright wasn't a good goalkeeper. You're not funny by trolling. You just look really stupid when you say stupid things, is what I'd say there. It was never done. Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, Jamie. That was quite a strange game for a Slava team to be involved with, and probably one who will have hated too many goals in that one. And then MK did this. Harry Thomas getting the full 60 minutes in this one and was widely praised by MK folk for putting up as much of a performance as he can. 2 goals inside the first 90 seconds in this one, as Sean Norris and Elliot Lewis cancelled each other out, and then MK went back to business. 20 goals in 2 games for the Lightning in a statistical weekend that the Pitbulls will not want to be looking at all. But goals as well from across the lineup for the Lightning. A hat-trick as well in this one for Ross Venus. Dylan Lawrence back on the score sheet. Patrick Forsberg on the score sheet as well. Pretty crazy game all in all. Mitch Walensky with yet another goal. So even though the Pitbulls have not really gotten results, Walensky really does appear to have settled in quite well and got his scoring boots on. And then the last game of the weekend, you can wake up now, Karen. A 3-2 win for the Swindon Wildcats. A massive, massive victory for Telford in the context of their playoff charge. And another bad loss for Swindon at a time where they really needed to try and keep pace with Leeds and MK above them. Finn Howes and 2 goals from Rhodes Mitchell-King in the third period for the Tigers. Jake Bricknell and Tomasz Malazinski scoring late in the third, but it's not enough, and that one potentially puts pay to the title charge of the Swindon Wildcats. As we take a look at the table there, and the Wildcats now having played having played the same number of games as MK and are 7 points back. You have to think now it's going to take a miracle for the Wildcats to get the National Division title, whereas all lies between MK and Leeds. The Knights with the game in hand, taking on and 2 points behind the MK Lightning. This one is going to the wire. At the bottom there, well, mathematically, Peterborough Peterborough are pretty close to being in. Romford 4 points clear of the Tigers with 3 games in hand. So you have to think that unless Romford completely poo the bed, the Raiders will be into the post-season. And then it's all eyes on our 8th and final spot. The Tigers 40 points from 47 games. Sharks 37 from 46. The Sharks need to win their game in hand and they need Telford to drop points as well. And that's the bit that you really don't want to have to do when you're relying on other people to do the work for you. Bristol are 10 points back of 8th. The Bees are 12 points back. The magic number for the Bees in terms of the maximum number of points they can get is 44. The maximum that the Pitbulls can get is 46. So ultimately, the highest either of those two sides could finish is 8th. And you require every team above you to lose as a result, as the mathematical point of elimination is starting to creep up. And of course, results will tell the story this weekend. Yes, as Jamie's just stuck in the chat as well. Leeds game in hand is Romford away the night before the showdown in MK. Huge weekends coming up, all things considered. And then, of course, we need to look ahead to this upcoming weekend. And, of course, thanks as ever to Max Van Mullen for the graphics on this one. And here we are on Friday, the last day of February, into the last month of the regular season we will go. Signed off in the National Division by the Leeds Knights and the Romford Raiders. They will face at 7:30pm at the Castle at Ellen Road. And then into Saturdays and some big games towards the bottom. Bristol welcome the Bees to Cribbs Causeway. MK take on Hull, who for once Leeds will be wanting their Yorkshire rivals to do them a favour. Massive for the Sharks, the first of 2 games at Dumfries this weekend as they take on the Romford Raiders. Swindon take on Peterborough at the Link Centre, and Telford take on Sheffield. Into Sunday, the Bees head home and they welcome the Swindon Wildcats. Hull take on Telford. Leeds take on Bristol. Peterborough versus MK, a massive game for MK and a massive potential banana skin as well, because if there's anything Peterborough will want to do, it is not to let the Lightning have an inch again in a game where Leeds take on one of the defensively worst teams in the league. And then, of course, the second of that double header at Dumfries, huge again for the Sharks. If they can get 4 points out of this weekend against Romford, they put themselves back in the fight. So there we go. The joy of not having as many games in NHL 1 and 2 to talk about this week means that we have hit every single game across the entirety of the NHL from the past weekend, meaning that we can open the door. We can open the door early as well. We'll have a check on the Elite League bits and pieces in a moment. But questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to talk about, let's chuck it in there. We don't need to hang around for the entirety of the half hour because, of course, like I say, there just wasn't as many games to talk about. But anything anybody wants to chat about, let's by all means have a go. Lee, of course, Lee's in the chat. I can see from Telford. Best game I've seen all season, Tigers and Swindon. Remember the links to Lee's 3D printing business, because Lee did these fantastic bits and pieces for me here. If you want to check those out, please do go. Please do go check out the link for his bits is in the description for his 3D Lee bits. Just having a look. Let's quickly get the bits and pieces up score-wise from the Elite League. 2-2 in Cardiff between the Devils and the Steelers, and I can see at the second break in Nottingham the Panthers lead by a 1-0. A power play goal from Jean-Paul Gorat has the Panthers 1 goal to the good, but of course still 2 goals behind at the Mo, meaning that they need a very, very big third period, all things considered. But that game obviously not done yet, it should be said. Have a quick check of all the other news. Let's have a quick flick of Twitter as we're talking about it, and it's mostly a view from the bridge tweeting through the game. That's not helpful now. Just having a quick check of some other bits and pieces, because what we want to see, of course, is all the other bits and pieces that are going on. Let's get rid of that. Too many things flicking their way. But yeah, otherwise, yes, I'm nervous about this weekend, but get through it with 4 points. MK fans will be a lot more confident about the title. Yeah, I mean, that's entirely reasonable. I think the big issue is going to be that MK, is when it comes to the showdown. And he said, I've completely forgotten the date of it as well, Jamie, so forgive me on So a tweet there from a Glasgow Clan account going, "We need more teams, and the Elite League needs to expand." Okay, I mean, all of the jokes, all of the time, all at the same time. I'm guessing on that front because, of course, you can just magic teams out of thin air. So if we just have a quick look then, if we head into March, there's the first, there's the second, there's the 7th, there's the 8th and the 9th. I'm just double checking when that game is. So it's clearly not the 9th because I'm going to MK's game. I'm going to the MK game against Romford. There it is. Saturday the 15th of March, 7 p.m. at the Thunderdome is the big one. MK Lightning versus Leeds Knights. And that one potentially will decide the title, especially if you consider that Leeds, if they win that game in MK, go home to take on Solway the next night. Whereas MK have to travel to Telford against a Telford team that desperately needs to win. That's going to be bonkers. Some people will question me going to Deeside, but I kept saying for ages, I need to go to North 1, I need to go to North 1. And I found a really fun way to go to North 1, so I'm going to go to that instead. But then, as we head towards the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd is the last weekend of the regular season. So we are just about, we are not very far away at all from playoffs. We're not very far away at all from all of this being done. The Cup, we can now put in its little package and go to one side. Of course, the Elite League will finish their Challenge Cup competition on Wednesday, the 12th of March. That will be where it will be, is the short version. On that one, with the Cardiff Devils twiddling their thumbs, waiting for the winner of Belfast and Nottingham. But yeah, certainly looking at those games over the back of the weekend. We'll just quickly pull the graphic back up. I'm just going to go backwards ever so slightly. Let's go back to Saturday because let's face it, one game. You're probably going to bet on Leeds to win at home, all things considered. If we look into that Saturday, certainly Bees and what a fun time for Bristol and the Bees to be playing each other. Just because of the fact that they literally could virtually eliminate the other one from the playoffs by maths, depending on results elsewhere. But there's some really, really interesting games in that one. Of course, we've got the fact that Solway basically need to just win. That Solway need a 4-point weekend against the Raiders, which of course will be a bit of a kicker for the Raiders. But get a point out of overtime potentially or penalty shots, and it's not a complete loss of a weekend. But MK need a win against a Hull team that, if nothing else, Hull can't win the league now. We know they can't win the league now. But the one thing that Matty Davis will want to do is ruin everybody's day. He will want to win against MK. He will want to win against. He will want to win against Leeds. He'll want to cause as much chaos as he possibly can because Matty Davis thinks his team can win the playoffs, and I genuinely think as well that Hull, if they hit a rich vein of form, can win the playoffs too. Swindon versus Peterborough has the potential to kind of be one of those games that's just incredibly tight and really, really frustrating. Telford versus Sheffield. That is one where I can't put my finger on kind of where we're going with that. Mostly because, again, Telford need to win, and Telford will kind of have an eye north as to what's going on too. But they will obviously want to because ultimately, mathematically, it sits with Telford. Can I win the National League? No, Dylan, you cannot win the National League. But certainly for Telford, given that mathematically things are on their side, it's really easy for Telford. Keep winning hockey games because ultimately Solway can't catch them. They need Telford to lose. The problem is that Sheffield are such a coin flip of a club at times. It's really hard to tell what they're going to do from 1 minute to the next. Obviously playing with two imports now, given Sam Tremblay's departure for the Steelers. And could Telford win it? Yeah. Could they easily get battered? Yeah. What if Walker Summer turns up and decides he wants to have a 17-point night? And then when it comes to the Sunday, I mean, you probably would put money on the Wildcats winning that one, although the Bees at home are a very, very different prospect than on the road. We could see them rage against the dying of the light. Telford away in Hull, again, Matty will just want to ruin Telford's day, which will, of course, then make Saturday night's result will massively see an influence as to what happens with the Sharks on Sunday on that one. For me, the bigger game here on Sunday, because with all due respect to Bristol, I'm not betting on Leeds losing that game. But Peterborough could be kingmakers here, massively could be kingmakers, because the Phantoms are generally built by Slava to be a playoff winning team, and they need to get into that good run of form. And as we saw this past weekend, bonkers results in the last sort of week, 10 days or so, putting 12 past Telford and then losing 9-6 to Romford. I mean, losing to Leeds, that is what it is. And like 4-1's a respectable scoreline to lose to Leeds by, but then shipping 9 goals the following night is pretty crackers, especially when you score 6 into the bargain. The response from Peterborough, sorry, if we went the wrong way there, if we go back there, away at Swindon, home to MK, is a statement weekend potentially for the Peterborough Phantoms, because ultimately, if they want to remind teams that, this is a chance to punch teams in the nose and go, oi, like, we won the playoffs last year, and you make any references to the semi-final or not, Telford got themselves into that position, and the Phantoms were the fortunate ones in it, but they stuck with Leeds for 60 minutes and then won in the shootout. You cannot count out the Peterborough Phantoms. You just can't. And ultimately, whilst I will struggle to watch the game, part of me really, really wants to watch this particular Peterborough versus MK game, because I'm fascinated to see how both teams approach it. It will be really interesting. Dylan, level with me here, and do you think the Lions can win the playoffs? I think the biggest issue for the Lions in terms of the playoffs, Dylan, I think they have a better run at it if they get 6th. I don't think they can, because the issue, I mean, you put there about given they've proven they can beat Blackburn, but context is king. Can the Nottingham Lions win a 60-minute game of hockey against the Blackburn Hawks? Yes. Heading into the playoffs, off the back of losing the cup final in the way that they did, can the Nottingham Lions be better and score more goals than the Blackburn Hawks over 120 minutes of hockey? And there is your bigger issue there. Because ultimately, if you end up in a shooting match, ultimately, I don't think it works out really well, because even if the Lions end up in 6th, you get Solihull. And Solihull have been on a massive tear. Yeah, okay, they've just dropped an absolute anvil on their foot by losing to a short bench D-side team. But potentially that's maybe where the Lions get in. The Barons just get, the wheels get gummed up and they don't know what to do with it. Ultimately, this is the best Nottingham Lions side we have seen in the last couple of years, if we're honest. And I've had the opportunity, mostly with Dylan yelling in my ear, about to watch enough Lions games at times this year, because if I've gone to a game on Saturday, the Lions are generally at home on the Sunday, and there is nothing easier than chucking on YouTube and watching some extra hockey, right? The Lions this year are much better than they have been in years past, because last year, for example, it was everybody on the back of Zach Yokoyama, hope and pray. Whereas this year, there is a bit more depth to what they're doing. It should be said. Lions don't play well against Solihull. Their style is like our bogey team. Well, then I think you're in for a problem, because with all the will in the world, you're not getting 5th. And like I say, I don't think, whilst the Barons don't match up against you stylistically, I don't like it just doesn't feel like it feels like an easy answer. The team in 2nd is going to beat the team in 7th. But ultimately, I just think that Blackburn proved in that cup final that when the context comes, they can turn it on. And I think the problem is that however much Padlek turns it on, however much Rushby turns it on, however much Tyler Summerton turns it on, the depth is there for Blackburn that isn't as there for the Lions. And don't get me wrong, I like this Lions team a lot. Like I said, it's the best Lions team we've seen in a good couple of years. And if that core can stay together next year, particularly with some of those younger guys, that is a team that maybe doesn't win North 1 next year, but makes a much, much bigger dent. I think we can score with Blackburn. We just can't defend on their level, and there is the big one. Because for all the will in the world, Isaac Ballinger can only do so much. If your D goes walking off at sea, as much sea as you can find in Nottingham, walks off into the Trent, then you're going to struggle because of Barnes, Lutwich, McKinney, Royds, all of them. There's enough guys there. Dara Spafford, for example, because let's face it, if it comes to playing in the North 1 playoffs or the South or the North 2 playoffs, if I'm Dara Spafford, I'm running towards Blackburn before I'm playing for Bradford. Sorry, Bulldogs, but you got to go with that as well. Better netminder coming up too. Top 3 under 16 D-men coming up too. So maybe next year is the better year for the Lions. But ultimately, that's never been. You know, the Lions have never looked at. It's been about giving youngsters ice time, letting them be that transition club. And maybe actually this is the transition of the transition club, because with that a good crop of juniors coming through, can the Lions look towards the cup next year or the playoffs next year? Because I don't think they are quite necessarily deep enough to do that damage. Either way, the Lions, if they as with hockey, if you give yourself a puncher's chance, then you have that chance. You have the chance to land that knockout blow. And if they gum up, like I say, if the Lions find a way to gum up the works and you end up in overtime in the second leg, anything can happen. And that's the joy of ice hockey. Xander Cleves can constantly play like he did Sunday night, every game like that we signed to. Yes, apologies, I forgot about Xander, so apologies on him. Jamie, can we talk about Ovi? Yes, we can talk about Alexander Ovechkin, now 12 goals away from becoming the highest goal scorer in the history of the National Hockey League, basically at this point. Also as well for the ridiculousness of the Caps putting 8 past the Pittsburgh Penguins and Ovi didn't score. Like, what are you all doing? Like, just sit Ovi in his office and just tee him up. Like, I get Jacob Chikrin's playing for a contract right now. Dude, pass the puck. Nobody wants to, even as a Caps fan, I don't want to see anybody else score right now. Like, like Brandon Duhaime picking up and scoring goals. Great for you. Don't care. As a Caps fan, I want to see two things: either Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren saving the puck, and Ovi scoring. I do not care. Literally at the moment, like Tom Wilson's got like his highest goal total in ages, and Colin McMichael's got 20 goals for the first time in a season, and Pierre-Luc Dubois has been fantastic this year for the Capitals, even though we don't appear to have a proper third line centre because Lars Eller got hurt. But yeah. All any of us want to see is Ovi score. I do not care. Set him up for everything. Just everything. Every power play is going to be ridiculous now if you're for the Capitals, because it's going to be Ovi in his office and the entire box just moving across to him. Or maybe 3 of them. 3 of them on one side and one guy just stood at the top of the crease accidentally screening his own man. As long as Jack and Dan don't see Ovi break Gretzky's record versus Detroit on March 19th. Hey, you know what? As an Oilers fan and a Maple Leafs fan, those guys have not had much to cheer about over the last couple of years. Go witness history on that front. They can have as much of a whale of a time as they want on that one. But yeah, pretty crazy. All in all, is Alexander Ovechkin. He is the greatest goal scorer of all time, and it's now. I don't even think it's a debate. Even if the fact that even if he takes into next year to break this goal scoring record, are we really having the argument that he's not the greatest goal scorer of all time? Like, it's pretty crazy. The thing I was because my wife is not a hockey fan. In the same way, I'm not an F1 fan, but she's an F1 fan. We kind of take that interest in each other's thing that we really like. And my wife sort of said to me, like, was chatting to me about it because obviously, it's getting quite close. And I said, the thing I reckon that will happen potentially with Ovechkin, and it could be a bit awkward because of obviously of the Russia situation, but I wonder whether we see a renaming of the Rocket Richard to the Rocket Richard Alex Ovechkin Trophy. Potentially on that front, because I think hockey being hockey, it will want to honour him in some way, but I don't necessarily know how they will do that. But it will take a long time for anybody to beat him. Austin Matthews has the potential to do it. I don't think McDavid will across the course of his career, because I think he will end up with points more than goals per se, even though he's just scored a lot of big goals. Canada will tell you that. But yeah, March 19th. March 19th, I think, is going to be a little bit too soon, from my understanding. I believe the pace he was on, Jamie, I believe Ovechkin is down to break the goals record sometime in April. If he maintains the pace, he should break it in April. I think it was like April the 12th or 13th or something like that he would break it. But pretty crazy stuff all in all. Actually, we can put myself back on full screen. I forgot I was talking so much, I didn't take myself off the screen, so everyone's just been staring at the fixtures. Any other news in the Elite League at the moment? Still 2-2 in Cardiff, and they are not back from the second intermission between the Panthers and the Giants. What we will do very quickly, actually, is let's just quickly check the DEL, just because the Eisbären Berlin were playing tonight, so we can see how Liam Kirk is doing. What I do need to do is remember the website, so we can check all the scores. There we are. I also keep forgetting they've changed the URL of the website. Let's have a look there. So actually, the Eisbären Berlin have lost tonight against Ingolstadt. Who scored for Berlin? So no points tonight from Liam Kirk. Dear me, why? Just have a quick look. If we pull up, where's Kirk? So Kirk was centering the third line tonight. So Liam Kirk at the moment, 43 games played in the DEL this season, 22 goals, 19 points, 19 assists, 41 points with 14 penalty minutes, and a 16.67% shot efficiency as well, which is, I think we can all agree, pretty fantastic. Plus 12 as well in a rating. And if we check, so he obviously didn't score. He actually doesn't have a point in the last 5 games, but that's probably because he's been played as a third line centre rather than being played on the wing like he has been at times. But either way, a fantastic season so far from Liam Kirk. Obviously not a great result for them, losing to Ingolstadt. The Eisbären are locked in for the playoffs, so Ingolstadt are first, Berlin are second, so we wait to see what kind of happens as we go along the way there. What we'll do though, last call for questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything else anybody wants to chuck into chat before we head out. I've clearly managed to sort out some of the settings because my CPU usage on this is much better. I realise the picture may not be quite as clear, but it's stopping my computer from overheating and dying, so we will take that one. We just need to get that bit of a mark off of there. Let's pop that way. But yes, last bits and pieces anybody wants to chuck in, otherwise we will head off, like I said, just a little bit early, just because there is less to talk about. Goal for Nottingham. That I've just seen flash up on Twitter. Cooper Zech from Otto Niemanen with the goal for Nottingham 37 seconds into the third period. That's going to get tasty now, all things considered. And the Panthers have been on a pretty impressive run of form recently. Belfast needing a goal pretty desperately to try and stem the tide there. But yes, either way, like I say, we'll give everyone another moment or two. Who in Saturday, Slough or Streatham? That is a tough one. That is a really tough one. It goes one of two ways, in my opinion. Slough either win 5-2, 6-2, or Streatham win like 3-2, 4-3. I think it depends on a couple of different factors, John, because I think what will happen is either Slough kind of rush them and stretch Streatham and kind of tie them out really quickly, or Streatham are going through them. That's the thing I think of on that one. It's going to be incredibly tight. It's going to be really, really physical. I'm almost guaranteeing that Brandon Miles is going to fight somebody. Just because I think he'll want to set the tone, but we will see. It could be incredibly tight and that everybody might be on a really, really tight leash, so we will see. With Mr. Day missing, all I can say is Kodiaks beat Peterborough 7-3. Ah, yes, of course, Andrew not in the chat tonight. Hopefully Andrew's okay. Normally he would appear at this point, so we don't have our usual WNIHL raft of bits and pieces, but hopefully Andrew's all right. But yes, so Cambridge beat Peterborough 7-3. We will see, Dave, what you make of Gosport. Also, as well, apparently, because if it's my understanding is that the Sailmaker is actually going to be shut for a refurb before too long. So if you're there, I can't remember when it is you're coming down for that, but the pub might not even be open. You might just have to make do with the Starbucks instead. Sorry if that's the case. But yeah, Slough or Streatham. For me being me, I would struggle to bet against Streatham because I think they've got the better experience of winning in these moments. But like I say, Slough are either going to rush past them and just score a lot of goals early and then just hold them at bay, or Streatham are going to drag them into the trenches and drag them into war. And that's where I don't think the Jets are as good. This Sunday coming, yeah, the pub might not be open, Dave, sorry. Miles will probably go wanting for a fight. Ben's had the boys on a tight leash. Only one on the roster who's had fights recently been Ethan Lane, who likely... No, I don't think Ethan Lane's going to fight Brandon Miles. I know this will sound like a really, really silly thing to do, but if I am Streatham, I don't know whether he's fit, but if he's fit, I give Jordan Gregory one job, and that is to deal with that physical presence of Brandon Miles, because I think Jordan is the one tough enough to do it. But ultimately, we will see. We'll see what happens on it. I think there's so many different permutations on this one. The Ely Newman boys against each other. Brandon, obviously, winning a national title and all those trophies with Streatham, and now back home with Slough. And obviously, I don't think the two teams like each other a great deal. But it was also around this time last year, the second leg of the South One Cup final, which was, I still think, probably the best game I watched last year. So these two sides generally only serve up crackers, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they produce. Like I say, Chris and I will be lurking around in near the away block, I'm sure. So we will see what happens on that one. But that is a 6:30 face-off this coming Saturday in Slough. Massively looking forward to it. So it should be a good one. Either way, I think we will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Join me on my winding journey through British hockey through Banners on the Road, which has last Saturday's first leg of the cup final between Guildford and Peterborough 2. And this coming week we'll have Slough and Streatham. It's going to be pretty impressive, all things considered. But we will see what happens with it. But you've got the entire last couple of years back, and lots of other bits and pieces as well as our Hockey Stories series, our long-form, in-depth pieces of content. Some are written, some are audio-visual. Of course, you've got our last piece from that, Remember the North, my chat with Jamie Thompson from Scottish Ice Hockey about the development of the game up north of the border. And there's one piece being written and one piece in pre-production. The historical piece I've talked about before, I'm still doing it, but I'm doing another piece first because some other stuff has come up. So working on that first. It's going to take a little bit of time for both of them to come out just because of the sheer volume of stuff that's happening, but they will come out eventually, even if it ends up being past the end of the season, just because I'll need stuff to write about then, if nothing else. But you've got all of that, nearly 14 years worth of content, and of course the back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast and Dice Hockey, our free to download game. All of that is on the website, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. If you head down there, Facebook, X, all of our bits and pieces. If you go into the description of the YouTube video, you can get all the links to all of our socials as well. But facebook.com/bannersonthewall, X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it, at BannersOTW, Blue Sky we're on as well. And there's also the link to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Never going behind the paywall, I've always said this, but obviously it costs money to do things. And if you'd like to contribute to the upkeep of bits and pieces and helping us out with just producing what I like to think is high quality, top, really, really high level content that covers the National Ice Hockey League structure, massively would appreciate that. But if you can't afford any money, please don't give them money you can't afford. Share stuff out, keep the algorithm hamster fat, happy and fed, as I like to say. But then of course there's YouTube. You've got lots of bits and pieces that you can check out and do bits and pieces with us. Lots of videos you can go back and check out. And of course we are here every Wednesday night, the BOTW What's Current stream. Yeah. Boy, the business end is really here. and hopefully everything is all right with you guys. Feels like the end of the season is going to be pretty manic. There's going to be a lot of good stuff coming on. March promises a lot. Got a lot of good games to go to. And the end of my season is going to be really, really interesting. Hopefully yours will be too. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, then please do make sure that you are safe. For Banners on the Wall, as my friend Scotty Walls would say, should get my outro right, blooming Evans. As my friend Scotty Walls would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long until next time. Have a great hockey weekend wherever you are. I will see you lot if you are there in Slough this Saturday. You can join us back here next Wednesday night for the BOTW. What's going on?